stand-up comedian. His wife, Rose Marie, thought it would be a good idea for Danny Thomas to switch careers, maybe try the grocery business. But he hung in there and stuck to show business, which was good news for us all.
America's foremost entertainer, Mr. Danny Thomas.
Dean Martin had it right when he referred to Danny Thomas as America's foremost entertainer back in the late 50s. Because for over 5 decades, until his death this morning from a massive heart attack, Danny Thomas was the embodiment of showmanship, a performer's performer, whose career encompassed work in nightclubs, radio, film, and television. He was a man who traveled far from his modest beginnings. He started out life as Muzyad Yaqub, the American-born son of Lebanese immigrants, who was later called Amos Jacobs. He began his career in Detroit doing radio in the 30s and made it to Chicago in 1940, where he decided if he was really going to succeed, he'd need a new name. One of 10 children, he chose the name Danny Thomas for 2 of his brothers.
My baby brother and my eldest brother. I missed my brothers. I used to doodle their names all the time on napkins and everything else. How many brothers you got? I got 8 and 1 sister, Emily. Well, I couldn't be known as Emily. That would be too tough.
After his continuing success on radio and later on the New York nightclub circuit, Thomas headed for Hollywood, where he starred in a number of feature films, including 1953's The Jazz Singer.
Pop, if it's the Golding name you want carried on, I'll carry it on for you. I'll have it up in lights. I promise you I'll make you proud of me.
While he generally received good notices for his work in film during the 50s, it was that decade's other new medium that really made him a star. From 1953 to 1964, Danny starred in Make Room for Daddy, one of the longest-running comedies in television history, in which he played a nightclub entertainer trying to juggle the demands of career and family.
Linda, I cannot come home. Why, Linda, I came home.
The show's enormous success and longevity came as a complete surprise to its star.
Frankly, I never thought we'd make it. I didn't think this face in white Protestant America was really family fare.
His role as a TV dad had some basis in reality. He had 3 children, daughter Terry, Emmy-winning producer son Tony, and daughter Marlo, who's long been a star in her own right. He was also a man known for his humanitarian works.
One year we pitched in for Danny Thomas's St. Jude's Hospital in Memphis.
For over 40 years, he's been raising funds for St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Memphis. It was a shrine he had vowed to build after praying years earlier to St. Jude, the patron saint of the hopeless.
For whatever reason there might be.
But what Danny Thomas loved most was being on stage, live, singing, telling stories, entertaining. Although 77, he had no intentions of slowing down.
A retired man with nothing constructive to do is a dead man. I like when they call you, because that's being wanted. And like Mr. Jolson said, when they want you, bathe in it, because the day could come when they won't want you anymore.
Terry and Tony Thomas are in Los Angeles, and Marlo Thomas is flying here, as is her husband, talk show host Phil Donahue. Donahue canceled the taping of his program, which would have run tomorrow, and asked affiliates to rerun an earlier show featuring Danny Thomas.
Not only was Danny Thomas a brilliant performer in front of the camera, he was also a driving force behind it. Thomas produced some of television's most memorable series.
The Dick Van Dyke Show.
As a producer, Danny Thomas had a second career behind the camera. Partnered with Sheldon Leonard, Thomas cranked out the hits, including the classic Dick Van Dyke Show, The Real McCoys, The Bill Dana Show, Joey Bishop Show, and Gomer Pyle, all in addition to his own 2 shows, and he was just warming up.
I saw him not too long ago. He was a picture of health, full of energy, and that's what I remember most about him, his power and his energy.
Oh, he was incredibly supportive over all the years, and I loved Danny. He was a wonderful man.
What I always say about Danny is that, believe me, he was never dull. He was a very exciting man. He was full of energy and ideas.
Early on, Thomas pioneered the idea of the TV spin-off when he introduced America to this character.
Name ain't Clem, it's Andy. Andy Taylor.
Another TV classic was born. In the 60s, producer Thomas got a second win, partnered with Aaron Spelling on the Mod Squad, The Guns of Will Sonnet, and Rango. Again, he had time for his own variety show.
He always gave. He was not a taker. That's the most important thing. He didn't take.
Last Last November, at the invitation of his son, producer Tony Thomas, Danny returned to the old Desilu Studios in Hollywood for his guest appearance on Empty Nest. It was at this very studio that Danny Thomas had made many of his early shows, a place he said he hadn't visited in 34 years. He reflected on a secret of success, one he believed he had passed on to his son.
You know, there's one thing we did on this lot and did extremely well, and I'm glad it spilled over to Paul Witt and Tony Thomas's casting. How to marry people, how to get them, together.
Last March, some of those memorable casts showed up to honor Thomas and early partner Sheldon Leonard at the Museum of Broadcasting. It was a memorable night to a man with a golden touch.
Audie Murphy enlists in the Army in 1942.